going to base our presentation length on population as well, so this should be nice and short. I'm Shay Lemmel. I'm the bituminous field engineer for South Dakota DOT. This is Traver Deagle. He's our pavement design engineer. We're going to kind of jump back and forth here between slides. The topics that we were given, we're going to try to cover all of them here.
Yeah, I'm Traver Deagle. I'm the pavement design engineer. I've had this job since February, so I'm fairly new at this. Before that, I was a road design engineer for 9 years, and then transportation planning engineer for a couple years. So I've got a lot to learn. But anyway, into this process, we use a program called DTIMS. Pavement management engineer uses this. They collect this data. They train interns to collect this data, and they drive roads throughout the state. We also have a van. We call it the Spider Van. We get this data. We determine that it's all based on a rating of 0 to 5. 5 being in good condition and 0 being in bad. So we'll base our treatment off of that data. So the decision tree, we have a decision tree for rigid and flexible pavements. And this decision tree is put into this DTIMS program and basically populates the DTIMS and tells us what to do. So the district selection, we've got 4 regions, and every year in the fall, November timeframe, we'll go on the 4 region meetings with the region engineers, area engineers, myself, a few other people, and drive the roads in this big bus. We determine how bad the cracking is, if there's something that needs to be done, mill and overlay, or a more in-depth treatment. You can really feel those cracks in that bus, by the way. We call them thumpers. And when we have those, we look at something else more than just pavement preservation. Materials and surfacing, that's me, helping with some of that. A lot of it's based off of our pavement thickness. We typically don't try to thin up the layers of pavement at all, the thickness of pavement. We always try to get more. So if we mill and overlay, we'll try to mill an inch and put back 2. We confirm all this stuff with the region and area offices. This is the decision matrix for our flexible pavements. You can read through that. If you have transverse cracking at that rating, then you can go down and look at your options. And here's the same thing for your rigid pavements.
We don't have a lot of successes and failures to share, but one thing we're trying on grinding up our curled PCC pavements. We have one stretch interstate that's curling pretty bad. We have an IRI smoothness specification on it. We've done a lot of research, smoothness testing on this area. The IRI existing is very high in the morning, colder temperatures. So we added a plan note to restrict the grinding time. No grinding from June 10th to September 5th. Only allowed grinding from midnight to 10 a.m. Project just got started September 6th, and it's just wrapping up now, so I don't have any data on it. The existing numbers, they were dropping probably 30 inches per mile throughout the day. Pretty extreme. Building a pavement preservation culture, something we've been doing for many years now. Asphalt pavements, crack seals, they're scheduled for year 2. Chip seals are year 3. Concrete repairs they're performed on a regular basis depending on current conditions.
We don't go more than 2 chip seals either. It's mostly just, we chip it in 3 years, and then 7 to 10 years later, depending on the pavement condition, we'll chip it again. We don't really do a lot of microsurfacing. If there's some rutting and the pavement's fairly new, we'll do some microsurfacing. So we'll do 2 layers of that. The first one's basically to fill in the rut and then create a uniform surface after that. Our maintenance training course, we're going to rewrite this book. It's the Maintenance Pavement Preservation Decision Guide, and every year we gather some maintenance folks. And in this preservation guide, it teaches them about what types of cracks. And it has the decision matrix in there also. If you have a certain condition, what to do if you have that condition. Like I said, we're in the process of rewriting this, just updating it. One thing I did want to mention is we do have a class of asphalt that's Class S. We don't do any chip seals on a Class S asphalt. And what our Class S asphalt is, it's basically stone on stone, and we just use that as an 1.25 inch wearing surface. We do those on the higher volume routes on the interstates, so we can put that asphalt down and not have to chip seal and not have to disturb traffic again. And one thing we do with our chip seals is we'll fog over the chip seals when we're done, so that helps embed that rock, and we get less claims, less broken windows, things like that. So we've been doing that for several years now, I think. Here's the amount of mileage that we have: 591 miles of chip seals, crack sealing, crack leveling, 310 miles. We do crack leveling when you have a depressed crack. If we don't want to do a mill and overlay and we still have that depressed crack, if the pavement's fairly new, we can crack level that. and then we'll do that before our second chip seal. Microsurfacing, like I said, we mostly do that with rutting. We did have one project, we had some clay balls in the asphalt, and those clay balls were popping out. And we determined that our best fix there was to microsurface over that. As far as I know, that's the first microsurfacing that we've done over new asphalt. If we do microsurfacing, it's typically the second round, so the second chip seal schedule. High friction surface treatments. There's a few locations where we have high run off the road crashes, a lot of run off the road crashes. I think it's a bauxite rock, it's really hard. They'll spray down epoxy, and it's not really a preservation treatment, but it's mostly safety. So in the Black Hills, if you're familiar with South Dakota, in the Deadwood area, from Sturgis to Deadwood, it's very mountainous and there's a lot of curves. And so we're doing some high friction surface treatments there. We're also doing some high friction surface treatments at some stop locations. And then our concrete pavement repair, we have 100 miles of that.
Any questions?
I was wondering whether you talked about the use of DTIMs. Does DTIMs help in programming the preservation treatments, or is that just for major rehabilitation?
The way our program works is we have an 8-year STIP, COA Transportation Improvement Program, and we try to determine the treatment type that far in advance. So with this DTIMs, and we're on a pretty good schedule with 2 years after we'll crack seal, and 3 years after we'll chip seal, and then typically our asphalts last. We try to get 15 years before we do some major work. So if it's getting down into 12, 13 years, we'll look at regrading or full depth reclamation, cold in place, recycling. All that's in that DTIMS program. It's all factored in there, yes.
What caused you to perform chip seals after just 3 years, and what have you noticed as far as performance after you started doing that? What's the improvement in performance?
The reason we wait to chip seal after 3 years is we let that pavement crack. We want it to crack first, and then seal the cracks before we chip seal the pavement. I think we've done that forever, as far as I know.
For the high friction surface treatment, are you using like manual method or like semi-automated method or fully automated method?
I don't know.
Do you know about that?
Don't have any idea on that.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.